Hello boys and girls. Welcome to the Temple Terrace Public Library for Summer Reading Arts and Crafts. I'm Miss Susan and I'm glad you've joined me today to make a Stegosaurus. He's actually got a very spiky tail and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second. Let me show you how I made the Stegosaurus. I just used a regular paper plate and I folded it in half and then I cut it in half with my scissors, because I'm only going to need half of it and I could save the other half to make another dinosaur. Could even make a different type of dinosaur out of a paper plate, not just a Stegosaurus. But I started out by painting it green, and I've got my tempera paint, just regular tempera paint. You could use acrylic paint too, maybe even watercolor paint. But I'm painting the whole thing just on one side. And I think I like painting the side that's kind of puffed out the best, because the paper plate is a little bit rounded and I think the little spikes show up better and stick up straighter if they are taped or glued to the other side. And I'll be putting them on the back side. So I've painted my whole half of a paper plate green, and I'm going to set it aside to dry while I get my toilet paper tube or a paper towel tube, either one, and I'm going to also paint it green. So I'm going to do the whole thing all the way around, and then I will have to let those dry. So I did paint some ahead of time just so we don't have to wait for these to dry while I teach you how to make it. So there they are, just sitting aside, and I'm going to clean up my hands a little bit, and then I'll show you what I did next. So I've got my already painted paper plate, and I've got my already painted paper or toilet paper tube, and I'm going to cut this in half. So if you did use a paper towel tube, you'd only need half of that. And these are going to be his feet. So what I'll need to do now is cut a little slit about halfway down on both sides, or opposite sides, of each of his little feet. So I'll do that again over here. And I'll set those aside also just for a minute. And now I'm going to have to make his spikes. So I've got some paper, just regular construction paper works. Here's a small enough piece so I don't waste that large one. I'm going to fold it in half, and I'm going to fold it in half again. And this was probably, I think I started out with about a half a sheet of regular green copy paper or construction paper. And now I'm folding it in half and then in half again, so that I'm cutting 4 spikes at a time. So now I'm going to cut some triangles and cut off the bottoms, that little fold. So now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 spikes, and I'm going to do that again, so I need probably a few more. So there I go with another 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to go ahead and take my glue and put them right on the back like this. Oop. Maybe not quite so far down, because I'm going to want his tail and his head, whoops, on one end, and the head on one end and tail on the other, for tails and tails. So there we go. And I'm just going to line them up across the back. And probably, let's see, this one's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spikes. I think I made my spikes a little skinnier this time, so I'll probably fit a little bit more than 5. So far I've got 5 here. And I might need to put it down. And I had painted both sides of this and realized I didn't need to do that, but you can. You could paint both sides of your paper plate. So now I've got all the spikes, and I need his tail and his head. So let me see here. I've got this much left of my paper. I think I'll make a wider triangle, and then I'm just going to cut off the point to make it rounded, and that's going to be his head. And then for his tail, I even have some long skinny ones already cut from when I was cutting the spikes, and now I'm going to cut out a couple of really tiny skinny spikes to go on the tail, because you know a Stegosaurus had some spikes on the end of his tail that were almost like a brain. They were filled with nerve endings, and they think that that helped him to think in a way. So now I'm going to glue some little spikes right on his tail, because those have those important nerve endings. I want him to have his tail. And now I'm going to just glue this right on the end here of the paper plate. And that's his tail sticking out. Now he needs his head. So I'm going to put that right on this end. And then he'll need an eye. So there's his head. And let me get my googly eye. I've got a bag of googly eyes. Here's one right here. If you don't have a googly eye, you could use a marker. Just give him a dot for an eye. And I think I'll use my marker and give him a smile. So there he is. Oh, not quite dry. And now he needs his feet. I'm going to sit him right down inside those slits of the toilet paper tube. It just slides right down into those little slits that we cut, or I cut, and maybe you're cutting too. And now he's got his legs. And there he is, and he can walk across the table now with his friend. So once he dries, he would be fun to play with. You could make a Brachiosaurus or a Apatosaurus with a long neck coming up and maybe a long tail. You can think of a lot of different dinosaurs to make with the paper plate. Let me show you some books I've got. This one's called Dinosaur Mountain, Digging into the Jurassic Age by Deborah Cogan-Ray. And it's about Earl Douglas, who was an American paleontologist, and he discovered something really big. He discovered almost the entire skeleton of an Apatosaurus. And this tells that whole story about him digging up those bones. So this is a nonfiction book, and you can find it at the library. And you can also find a fiction dinosaur book called Too Many Dinosaurs by Mercer Mayer. This is a fun book about a little boy who wants to get a puppy dog, and his mother says no, go outside and play now. Well, he goes to a little yard sale next door, and the fellow is selling a dinosaur egg. So he buys it, and guess what? It hatches out in his room, and all kinds of mayhem unfolds. So come find out what happens to that little boy with his dinosaur egg. We've got some other nonfiction books. This one's about Stegosaurus, and this one is too. You can learn all kinds of facts about the dinosaurs we just made. And here's Ankylosaurus. We've got Diplodocus, Triceratops. My son's favorite when he was growing up, Parasaurolophus. So anyway, I hope that you'll come to the library and check out a book about dinosaurs. We've got lots more than just this. And you'll find them under the mobile that's hanging from the ceiling that has lots of dinosaurs on it. That'll help you locate the dinosaur books. And I hope you'll make a paper plate Stegosaurus or some other dinosaur. Thanks for joining me today. Bye-bye.